Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Jeanine Thompson. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this morning or afternoon in our case. And I'm grateful to have you talk about how people can reach their fullest potential and how sometimes people might be leaving some of their greatest potential on the table, because as we spoke about just before we hit the go button, many people start the new year every year with, what are my resolutions? How am I going to be a better person this year? And they fall off the wagon pretty quickly, and then they beat themselves up. But it doesn't have to be like that. You are a transformational coach, speaker, author, and I'd love for you to, before we hit onto these wonderful tidbits, just share a little bit about your backstory and what brought you to the coaching world.
Sure. So my professional career has been pretty eclectic. I started out as an evidence-based psychotherapist, research-oriented, treating panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and the like. So very much SOP-based and proven. Then I became a Fortune 50 executive for the next 12 years, leading human resources across the globe, did a brief stint as a business general manager stack, a lot of high potential and leadership development. And then I moved into the world of energy. I became a Reiki master and certified yoga teacher and a transformational coach. So I really fuse both my appreciation for what is proven, what's visible, what's known through best practices of science, and now fusing the untapped power. Most people leave on the table every day, the potential they leave every day that's already alive and well within all of us right now, just seeking to burst forward and ignite the highest potentiality of who we really are.
Wow. And interestingly, I'm curious to find out from you, having come from the corporate world for many years and then entering into the more energy world and spirit world, what was the biggest difference you found being in the corporate world that maybe people are not as in tune to when they're in that world as opposed to when you moved on over into more energy work?
Yeah, I think probably the leaders will experience what I did, which is when we're in corporate, we're taught to lead from what's proven, what's known through our five senses. And that really is the modality. When we expand into the world of spiritual growth, energy, now we look at things holistically, mind, body, soul, and spirit. And we understand that every single one of us has this treasure trove of expanded intelligence, limitless gifts, wisdom that resides in the core of our body. We're not taught that as leaders. We are not taught to tune in. We always go out. Let's look outward at best practices. Let's look outward at the gurus, and let's push, 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 push. The more you got to do, the harder you should dig in. And when I came into this other world, I learned that I needed to unlearn all those myths, because the truth is, the harder we push, the less effective we are. The harder we push, the less innovative and creative we are. So it's the antithesis of what we're taught. We're taught, got a problem, go fix it. Mm-hmm. We're not taught, got a problem, go inward, because the highest solution for your individual life and for the business problem or humanity at large, whatever level you're solving on, always resides within.
Wow. What's interesting about this, I find that you were mentioning the push, push, push. Often when we have this goal and we think if we just push towards the fix or push towards the solution, it ends up going further and further away. It's almost like it's driving away full speed while you're trying to catch up to it and you can't seem to catch up. And And sometimes, and this happened to me, I had this friend said, why don't you for 30 days do this challenge for 30 days, just go out for a 30-minute walk. I was like, I don't have time for that. And I tried it. And she said, go to the park for 30 minutes, 30 days, 30 minutes and 30 days in nature walk. And I thought, well, this is a waste of time. But it turned out to be the best thing ever, because when I would leave my desk and go out for 30 minutes, I would get this clarity, just moving, and, your brain's still active, but that moving and being in nature and the sunlight would just bring this clarity to a lot of the times you'd be able to come back to your office and be that much more clearer to resolving whatever issues you might have.
I love that example, because one of the things that we need to do is we have up to 70,000 thoughts a day. And the data would say that most of those thoughts, 90%, are repetitious each day. So what you're describing is when we engage in something like going out in nature and we lose ourselves on the land or in the infinite sky, we actually empty and soften our busy brain. And without us even knowing it, we move into our body. We call it embodying our body, but we actually leave our busy brain. We move into the core of the chest of wisdom. And so that's what happened to you is out on the land. Not only do you get the physiological benefit of exercise, we actually soften and empty the mind. And then our heart's intelligence starts to speak. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's how I can get through this barrier.
Yeah.
But most people don't do that. Most people sit at their desk and they're in back to back to back to back to back meetings.
Yeah.
So we're reacting, we're getting myopic, we're regurgitating the same dance of dialogue. And I'm glad science is catching up. It lags most of the time. Timeless wisdom always knew that space, your breath, and silence would yield higher quality answers, higher quality solutions, more harmony. But even science now, Microsoft Human Labs had some great data now where they hooked people up, those who took breaks between meetings and those who did not take breaks. And not surprisingly, those who took breaks, their brain imaging, their brain waves remained steady. Those who didn't take breaks, their brain waves were erratic. They showed up all red on the screen, meaning more stress. So we now have got proof that the very same thing we're taught not to do, take a break, enter silence. Most of us were taught being silent was unproductive. Or like for me, I was in a plane up to 300,000 miles a year internationally. And I just thought, I'm too type A. There's like no way I am going to get this busy brain to slow down and shut up for a while, And interestingly enough, if you just start with 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So I'll even go away from the 30 minutes, which I love. I am 100% positive that works. But for your listeners, 30 seconds to 2 minutes a day, one hand on heart center, one hand on belly. So we shift from the 70K into the wisdom centers and just breathe, like feel your hand on your belly move in and out. And we follow touch in our body. So we move back into the wisdom. And I promise you, everyone can be still. Everyone can access this wisdom. We simply have got a myth, a narrative that says, I can't do it. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I got to push through and get this done. But we must unlearn that, because truly all of us every day, what do we want to do? We want to wake up. We want to shine. We want to make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our goal. And yet, inadvertently, due to all these old narratives, we actually set ourselves up for being less less of our talent, less of our love, less of our intelligence.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about this is I used to tell myself, after one more sale, one more call, then I'll get up. And
I hear it. I did too. I'll
16
take a
hours
break
later.
when. I'll take a break when.
When?
And yeah, days turned into decades.
Yeah.
Literally, days turned into decades. And so this is an invitation. And you had asked a question earlier I want to double back to, which is, we are at that time of year where a lot of people are thinking about, boy, I had all these goals this year, didn't quite get them done. And I'm going to set these resolutions and I'm going to do it again differently next year. And then they get discouraged because by mid-month January, they've already fallen off track.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of suggestions for you. Yeah. One is, who is the goal for and how did you set it?
The why.
So often we set goals, just like we pursue external success or experts, we actually pursue some goal based on an external expectation. I should lose weight because it's more accepted. I should do this. I should do that. And what I'd offer your listeners is, let's move away from the ego goals and actually just tune in and ask the question, what wants to come alive in me in 2023?
Yeah.
What do I most want to experience? Don't ask your head, because your head's going to give a programmed answer.
Yeah.
Ask your heart. And then do just what Christina did. Go out in nature. Don't solve it. Allow wisdom to bubble up. We want to get it. We want to identify it. And actually, our greater invitation is listening and allowance. It will reveal itself in the most clever ways.
Boom. Yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because I recall when I started podcasting, it was because I saw a good friend heard a good friend being podcast or being interviewed, and something inside of me screamed, you need to do that. I'm like, what, that? Interview someone? I've never done that before. But now, 11 years later, I'm loving it. Met wonderful people, grown, and I've learned much. The people listening in have learned much. And it was through that listening to that moment where it seemed outrageous. Like, what? So I think sometimes, there'll be messages coming to you if you're ready to listen that might not make sense. But if you go in that direction and go towards that voice and listen, you get some great wisdom.
It never fails you. Mm-hmm. It never fails you. But you said something really important, is that you tuned down the volume of life enough to hear it. And even though it doesn't make sense, and that's my whole approach, is soul and science, proven and not proven. You had this whisper that was not proven. It wasn't part of your plan. I'm sure it was part of your business plan at that time. And yet you were willing. You were willing to say, all right, I'm going to test and try. I'm going to give this a spin. You were willing to act on the guidance. Yeah. See, life is speaking to each one of you listeners every day. It might speak to you through a quote. It might speak to you through a whisper of an idea, like it did Christina. Sometimes for some of you, it's going to speak to you in a way where something in your life has been shaken or stripped away. Maybe some aspect of your job or a relationship or your health. I call those 911s from your soul. Right? Yeah. Where it's masquerading as a challenge or crisis, but it's actually a love note from your soul saying, hey, I tried to get your attention in an easier way, but you were too darn busy to listen. So I had to get a little loud, and the whisper turned into a brick. But there's no need to worry, because the solve is actually, the solve is actually already inside of you right now. But you have a greater possibility to live, and life needs you at its best.
And by the way, everyone, that is her first book, 911 From Your Soul. So if anyone wants to get a copy, we'll talk about how they could do that. But I just want to hit on a very important part we talked about before we hit the go button. And that is, myself included and many others, we think if it's not hard, we're not doing it right. We have to push, make it hard, or we're not really worthy of that gift or that thing that we end up getting, whether it's losing weight or that job or whatever it is.
Absolutely. We've almost been spoon-fed from birth that if it isn't hard, we're not challenging ourselves enough. We're leaving something on the table, so that when we move into an allowance, we might feel unproductive or lazy, like I don't have time to wait for some magical inner genie, to give me an answer. So it's the antithesis of what we've been taught. So all you need to do is, when that narrative pops in, simply say, noted, and join me. I'm going to give this a spin. I'm going to give this listening, this allowing a try, because pushing actually constricts us. It constricts our creativity. It constricts our innovation, our joy, our harmony, everything in our body constricts, and we've shut off the faucet to our greatest intelligence. So let's have a willingness as we end the next 20 some days, and as we enter a brand new year, to also enter a brand new narrative, which is, I'm the and. I am human and I'm divine. And if divine doesn't work for you, I'm human and inner genius, or I'm human and entelechy. Entelechy is a seed of potential. It's the entelechy of an acorn seed to become an oak tree, caterpillar to become a butterfly. You too have an entelechy already within you. But force isn't your answer. It is about tuning inward and allowance, and then joy. Go out and have some fun. What starts to happen when we have a joy date is, not only do we physically expand, we intellectually expand. And all of a sudden, with ease, there's your solution. The pathway is revealed.
Yeah. Wow. This has been so insightful, Jeanine. And funny, we mentioned the potential and just going with joy and listening, because last week, my husband and I were just sitting here watching a funny program, and we had an idea of that came to mind because many years ago, I had a slew, one after another, of kind of very crazy, difficult roommate situations that turned into funny stories that I tell family members over the years. But we were talking about one of them watching a funny comedy. I said, remember that time when? He's like, yeah, that should be a book. And I've heard this more than once, but at that moment we both looked at each other and we both said, well, why don't we do it together? And at that moment, we both decided we're doing this together. Me and my husband, we're gonna write this together. But
I love it. But what you're describing again, so a beautiful example that in that joy, in laughing out loud, in giggling, and finding the absurdity and maybe the grace and love in all of those challenges, because I bet you grew. But in your willingness to laugh, you were expanded. Now, all of a sudden, you got, the universe is saying, hey, Christina, we want you to share your love forward through this way. But you're so dialed in, and that's the invitation for everyone else. Outward will never, ever give you the true riches in life. Right?
Absolutely.
And so the great search and the great invitation is actually to reconnect inward.
Wow. What a great way for us to close on out today. But I don't want us to leave without everyone finding out how they can find out more about you and get their very own copy of your first book, 911 From Your Soul. How can they do that?
Excellent. So you can find me at JeanineThompson.net and leave me a note. There's a contact section. Excuse me, can't speak right now. And I'd love to hear from you. And I promise you I'll respond back. Like, what touched you? Like, what are you curious about? So reach out. I'm on Instagram _Jeanine Thompson _ and you can get your own copy and live your highest potential. 911 from your soul, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or support your local community and bookstore. They can certainly order it as well. And life is ready for you to live all that you came here to be.
Awesome. Well, Jeanine Thompson, thank you so much today for coming to share all your wisdom on how everyone can reach their fullest potential in 2023 and beyond. Thank you for coming to Savvy Broadcasting.
Thanks. It's been such a great joy.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.